Welcome to our conversation today. Today we will dive into the world of psychotherapy, specifically the idea of integration. We will be drawing on an excerpt from Jerzy Mellibruda's book, 7 Paths of Psychotherapy Integration. So the goal is to understand what this is all about, combining methods, and why it's so important for effective helping. Let's get started. And right away, let's clarify what this integration is not, because Mellibruda, he really emphasizes this point. It's not just some kind of mechanical mixing of techniques. A bit from this school, a bit from that one. On the contrary, it actually requires the therapist to have awareness, reflection, and flexibility. The point is to be able to match the tools to the specific person, to their suffering, rather than just applying ready-made formulas.
Exactly. And here I think we get to the heart of the matter, to the very nature of psychological suffering. Mellibruda shows that it is, how should I put it, multidimensional. It's rarely the case that a problem affects only one area, right? Just emotions or just thoughts. It permeates everything, emotions, thoughts, relationships, even the body. Sometimes it strikes at one's sense of meaning in life.
So you can't just cut out a single problem because it's connected to everything else?
Exactly. That's why, according to Mellibruda, effective help has to address all these aspects. It's something much more than just, reducing symptoms of anxiety or sadness. It's also about supporting the building of hope, strengthening self-worth, and improving relationships. Such help engages the whole person, not just the part that's unwell.
And this is where it really gets interesting. Mellibruda introduces this concept of the 7 paths of cooperation. That sounds, intriguing. 7 paths. But what does that mean? Are these some kind of therapy stages one after another?
Actually, they're not stages. And I think that's very important. It's not a linear process. Mellibruda sees them more as, parallel areas of work. Paths that can be flexibly combined, depending on what the patient needs at a given moment. And each path brings something, unique. For example, there's work on the therapeutic relationship itself. That's fundamental. There's exploration of life experiences to understand their impact. There are also more concrete actions like cognitive modifications, that is, working with thoughts, or behavioral ones, meaning changing behaviors. But there are also paths that go deeper, to insight, to reconstructing one's personal history, to giving it meaning.
So the therapist kind of juggles these paths, meaning, for example, they work on changing behavior, but at the same time look at where it comes from in the patient's history and take care of the relationship.
Yes, that's a good comparison. Juggles, or rather, dynamically weaves these areas together. For example, this exploration of experiences isn't just about telling what happened. It's often a return to important moments, but this time with a new guide, the therapist, to discover the emotions or beliefs hidden there.
I see.
And this in turn can directly influence working with thoughts, that is, the path of cognitive modification or the development of insight. This is exactly that flexibility, completely different from approaches that have a rigid plan.
That sounds like something that requires the therapist not only to know techniques from different schools, but also to have a great deal of intuition, an ability to synthesize. How do these different elements, sometimes hard interventions and sometimes something more subtle, like the need to be heard, to find meaning, how do you bring all of that together into a coherent whole?
Exactly. And according to Mellibruda, that's the essence of the art of integration. It's not just simple addition, technique A plus B plus C. It's about creating synergy, where the whole is, something more than just the sum of its parts. This requires the therapist to have a truly deep understanding of how these concrete techniques can harmonize with the subtle existential needs of a person. The key is to keep asking, what does this particular person need most, right here and now in this moment? And secondly, how can I combine what I know and what I can do to best respond to that need? This is about creating a process that truly resonates with the patient.
To sum up, integration, according to Mellibruda, is not just some kind of eclecticism, mixing for the sake of mixing. It is a conscious, flexible, and highly individualized combination of different approaches to helping. The goal is to address the complexity of human suffering, and the tool is this concept of the 7 paths.
Exactly. The key is not so much the technique itself, but how it is tailored. Mastery lies in adapting to the person and the context. And this leads to what I think is an interesting thought to end on. Since human suffering, but also healing and growth, are so complex and encompass these different paths we've discussed, exploring the past, changing thinking patterns, building relationships, searching for meaning, how might the awareness that these various paths exist influence our own perception of personal growth, or the way we seek support, even outside of therapy?
Indeed.
Something to reflect on, to think about for later.